Good afternoon, welcome back to Chris Flies. Today it's going to be a very mundane flight, taking the Cessna 182 Golf Charlie Mike Charlie Foxtrot for a quick flight around just to get the engine running, keep it warm, keep it dry, keep it happy. I was hoping to do my a decent journey today, like a 2 or 3 hour flight around the country, but yet again, clear skies forecast and patchy mist, fog, patchy low cloud all around. So I'm going to head out and have a look, see what it looks like, but I reckon it'll be a pretty short local flight. Maybe practice a few touch and goes here at Fair Oaks. No wind, so good practice to try in some different conditions. But it transpired this wasn't going to be just a simple flight around the local area. I made a big mistake and I didn't check the fuel caps being put back in place after it had been refueled. I had it refueled after all the A checks were done, and I'd already been around, dipped the tanks, drained them, checked the oil, checked all the surfaces, controls, lights, everything else. And so I was heading out to potentially a 2 or 3 hour flight with something that could well have caused me fuel starvation and a forced off-field landing if I hadn't hit bad weather and been forced to turn around and come back home. So why don't you sit back and watch the issues unfolding completely unbeknownst to me as I take off and fly around with a very leaky plane. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video, and please do comment. I love getting your comments, good and bad. Power check's complete. I'm going from the holding point onto the active runway, looking out for aircraft coming in. It's a radio service at Fair Oaks today. All's looking good. The instruments are all green. I'm now going to start looking forwards for my takeoff. What I'm not doing is looking right or behind me. And if I had looked either of those ways, I'd have seen this torrential downpour of fuel spilling off the wings and pouring over the flaps, the end of the wings, and down the strut. Obviously, I don't think many of us do look behind us when we're taking off, so it was a bit of a miss on my behalf, but not as big an issue as not checking that the ground crew have put the fuel caps back onto the wing, which I didn't do, and I will do for the rest of my life moving forwards. So as we start to gain some speed, the wind over the top of the wing is sucking the fuel out and making it into a fine mist you can see coming off the back of the flap. 2 stages of flap down for takeoff. And as I raise the flap, the fuel mist is still there. And as I come flaps completely off, the fuel mist is out of view, but I am certain it's still being pulled out of the tank at a hell of a rate. I'm going to zoom in and have a look at my fuel gauges in a second. So I'm now departing and ironically saying there's not a lot of places to do an emergency landing if I had engine failure on takeoff, as we're taking off on 06 and it's pretty built up with either woodland or properties around there. So I'm climbing up into the circuit to depart from the circuit. There's someone else in a 152, and I'm going to head out and go down to the south coast. The plan was to fly along the coast and back. As it turns out, the weather was pretty bloody awful, very low clouds. So I got as far as the South Downs, got squeezed into the South Downs, and then turned around and came back to the airfield to land, as it looked like the cloud base was continuing to drop, not to rise. All in all, this is probably a very good decision on my point. If I'd been out flying for too long, could the open cap have allowed all the fuel to come out of both tanks because they're cross-fed and caused just fuel starvation? And would I have had to have done an emergency landing, having no fuel left? Anyway, I didn't have to do an emergency landing. I made it back to the airfield, landed perfectly normally, and then didn't notice there was a problem until I was watching the video this morning, which is the next day. And I first thought it was water, and then when I reviewed it, I realized it was fuel spewing out. So I had a quick call to the airfield operations team. They had a look, and the fuel cap was hanging on by its chain, but definitely not in the position where it should be, which is screwed into the top of the fuel tank. So what's my big takeaway from today's incident? Well, it's really simple. I'm pilot in command, and I should have double checked that the fuel caps were back into place after it had been refueled. You cannot trust anyone else to do anything critical with your aircraft. So I will check and double check everything again. Next time I'm going to get up onto the wing, I'm going to dip the tanks to make sure it's got the right amount of fuel in. I'm going to double check the security of those fuel caps, and I'll do a final walk around and make sure everything is in place. Slightly ironically, I wasn't in a rush today. I was doing a local flight just to take the aircraft out, to get it warmed up, get the engine running, stop any corrosion, make sure the battery was charged. And I sat in the aircraft with the engine running for ages waiting for everything to warm up before I flew. So today was a bit of an anomaly in as much as there was no rush, there was nowhere to be, but also it was a clear mistake on my behalf of not double checking. So, leave some comments, tell me what you think. Have you ever experienced something like this yourself? How do you go around making sure you don't make these kinds of mistakes? And I'm sure lots of people will tell me, how stupid I am. And you know what? I'll hold my hand up. I am stupid. I cannot believe I've done this. It's very annoying, but at least it was a short flight and we landed safely and everything is fine. And having spoken to the crew at the airfield, the cap was still attached by its chain. They've put it back onto the fuel tank. And so, life goes on. Lesson learned. Thank you so much for watching, and please do make comments, and also please like and subscribe and follow, share this video, and hopefully help other people not make the same mistake that I made.